Chaver, you could pass these out today. Baruch atah Avinu Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvarim. Good morning, everybody. The month of Kislev, sponsored by Elaine and David Brenner, memory of protection of Tol Yeruvim ben Chaya Adasa, Miriam and Avram Deutsch, in honor of the 30th Aliyah, Mindy Barad, and thanks to Hashem for miracles, past, present, and future for all of Am Yisrael. The week is sponsored by Amalia and Nekama Garcia for the protection and success of our holy warriors, safe return of our captives, for the spiritual and physical healing of our wounded and beloved, by Sahava Englard and Norman Shapiro, in honor of their two Chayalim, Avraham Yosef ben Zavadina, Ezra and Mir Milana, by Ashir and Tzvi Edelman, Lilu Nishmas Asher ben Pesach, and Chayaleh Bas Zlata, davening that all of our Chayalim will be safe and all our Chatofim will come home. Today, Monday, is sponsored by Howard Schraub. Howard Schraub is a Yitzchak Hillel. Howard Schraub is a very dear friend of mine. Wow, so sweet. So sweet to see this. In honor of Rav Shlomo. I don't know. He was a chassid of Rav Shlomo, so I'm not sure who he's referring to here. So, no. There's Reb and there's, holy brother me. Humble brother me. All right, Chavra. You see the page in front of you. I'm just going to give a little bit of an explanation that we have 2 more shiurim from this parak to finish this parak. And then we're going to start to learn this whole sugya, but from a different way. Al derech hapnimiyus, al derech hachasidus, al derech inside. Meaning the layers, the actual work on a layer, on a deep mahalach, mahashkafa kind of way. But we have to start today's shiur with a very strong calling of the point of the shiur. The point of the shiur has been to not get confused. Am Yisrael got confused for many years. And right now I feel that it's a very, very, very delicate time right now because of our emotions. Because of the pictures of what we see when we see the pictures of little Jewish children coming home. So right away, the element of, I'm just filling my heart with simcha right now, takes over, especially since there's been so much pain. But I'm going to say something that's obviously uncomfortable and not my words, just speaking to one of my closest friends who's very high up there in the army and he's in the inside there. He said to me, I want you to know, and he said, tell this to your Kehillah, I want you to know how the Chayalim are looking at this right now, at this phase right now. And he said like this, a very, very strong statement. He said, Be'etzem, we know that every single hug that's seen on television, the tears and simcha, we take into account that's 10 Chayalim. That's what he said. He said we understand that, and he said, and we would still do it 1,000,000 times over. He said, but understand that. Like, understand this concept is not. This milchama is so sick and twisted in its yesod and deep down inside. Because now the war has begun to tug on the place that got us into all this bilbul in the first place, which is misplaced rachmanas, misplaced compassion. And a very important thing that we have to work on in our avodat Hashem and in our whole relationship to the fact that we're living here, the mitziut of us living here, is mamash ma'makom hazeh, not to get confused, which is what we keep on saying all the time, over and over and over again. Not to get confused. And that's why it's going to take even more. Whatever we thought we were learning until now, maybe that was more from easier to digest because the emotions were more raw. Now it's like, oh, well, instead of seeing pictures, horror pictures all day long, so for a few days we've been seeing these these beautiful, geuladik moments for families, right? What we're not seeing, which is what the media is doing somewhat of a good job doing, is that what we're not seeing is that these murderers. Someone doesn't end up killing someone because it didn't work, but they still stabbed them. They're a murderer. That these menuvalim are back here in this backyard, right over here. They're here. They're right behind us. And in order for us to remain focused, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take even more. It's going against our nature, even more, going against that place that just wants to sit in a place of, oh look, they're all coming home. Of course, that's the greatest simcha in the world. Of course that is. It's because this oyev, this enemy knows exactly what to tug on. It knows exactly what to tug on. They understand this, mamash, they understand this so clearly. Let's go to that place. The emotions, that whole emotion thingy is basically how we got the whole balagan to begin with. And now we're going to go back to it again. And it's a very, very pivotal moment in this war, in this milchama. Very pivotal moment in this war. Because if the Chayal says, we understand what these pictures result in. These pictures result in, we understand it, and we're even, this is what blew me away, and we would even do it, he's saying. But if they don't let us continue to fight and wipe out these monsters afterwards, I don't want to tell you what he said to me afterwards. But our job over here right now is to stay focused with our learning as to the best of our ability, and to not allow either emotion drive us to any extreme, just to redefine and look at terminology that somehow has gotten, again, like we said, has somehow gotten lost over the years, and to really think clearly as, in our learning. This is like the most crude bemet, I feel. It's so different than what we've been spending years on, right? We've been spending years just learning Pneumius stuff. This is also Pneumius. It's just a different way of approaching the issue. If anyone needs to be convinced that they're a peace-loving person, and then they can go about and learn this stuff, that's already like, you don't have to do that. We're all peace-loving people. We're all shocharei shalom. We all want real peace. We all want real peace. Because anachnu anshe shalom, and Hashem's name is shalom. We are. Now, again, I know that these shiurim bring up a lot of questions and a lot of emotions. I really just want us to learn. I want it to get really, we don't have that much time. These shiurim really should be honestly, it should be a whole Seder Boker. Like for an hour, you're learning the Koros. And then for at least an hour to an hour and a half, you're learning the sources. And then afterwards, we spend another hour learning it, inside, discussing it. But Baruch Hashem, some of us have jobs. Some of us actually go to work. Just a few in Efrat. Just a few actually go to work, but somehow it's very interesting mitzias that we're living in right now. But we're going to do the best that we can with the time that we have. So if you look on Daf Kuf Lamed Aleph.
If I could just to reinforce, I was in a meeting yesterday with Erez Eshel from Enkrat, who is fairly high up in the reserves.
Yeah.
He was extremely passionate on behalf of the soldiers, who are, of course, pleased with the releases, but mea chuz, feeling that if we do not continue, they will feel completely that they put themselves on the line for nothing.
Yeah.
So your point from somebody who was literally
in there.
He was in his uniform, came from the front, and was going back. Also, yesterday at that same meeting, Rav Shlomo made a very clear point that I hadn't heard anybody say before. The whole concept of Pidyon Shvuim does not apply. It was a chutzlar. The concept is we were living among nations and we were taken captives. But we're in the middle of a war.
But what happens when the nation sees the prime minister get up and he quotes the Rambam?
I know. I'm just saying.
Quotes the Rambam about, there's no greater mitzvah than Pidyon Shvuim. But then there's another Rambam there that's very clear that says, Yo lo yoter mikdei dmeihen. This is very, very, very confusing. And we must get clear. We must stay clear and focused with an open heart to Dvar Hashem. We have to. Okay, this is our milchama right now. This is our front. We have to stay clear, okay? So yalla, let's Bezrat Hashem, please Hashem, like, it says, "Oh, Leman Shem Chagadol V'Anora." So, like, let us give you nachas and hopefully stay clear. And while we're staying clear, to enable us to remove judgment on all those that we feel are falling into some kind of a slump and slumber, like to just have rahman, like real rahmanas and real love for everyone, absolutely everyone. So look at Shlomo. We're going to start with Shlomo HaMelech today. Shlomo HaMelech, beautiful pasuk from Mishnah. Shlomo HaMelech alav shalom kasav chesed ve'emes yitzaru melech ve'sa'ad yitzaru melech ve'sa'ad bechesed kis'o. This is a very important pasuk, and he's going to explain what this actually means. Hakavana hi she'akadosh baruch hu kava midot va'arachim be'kulam hem chesed. Everything that Hashem established in the world is chesed. Give me an example that would seem to you not to be chesed. What would be something that Hashem instituted in the world that I'll pee, like the human, like, you know? Huh? Yeah, I'm thinking more of like a mitzvah, like a halacha. Like what mamish doesn't seem to be chesed at all? Shiluach haken, right? That's a great example. Like whenever everyone goes and has problems over here, they always go to shiluach haken, sending off the mother bird, which seems to us to be the opposite of the midah of chesed. And there are many mitzvahs like this, but that's like the top one. Here he says, everything that Hashem, all the midot that Hashem put into the world, all the values behind why we do what we do, hakol chesed, aval. Ein ze kechesed hameduneh shel tarbut hazara v'shel hamityavnim. Shehem kivyachol hakov'im ma ze chesed. Shehem kivyachol bor'im et ha'olam ve'et chukav betzalmam bidmutam. But which is not so with this term called just chesed, kindness, right? That has been completely hijacked by the Hellenists of the world that have created a whole new terminology of what real chesed is. You have, I couldn't believe this, but I could. You have a group of such confused, misinformed Yidden that are at these pro rallies in America, and they're singing their Olam Chesed Yibaneh, right? Calling for an end for Yidden doing what they're supposed to be. Such a misuse of this terminology, right? So he's saying that, and we see that. We see that very loud in the world. Like, we see that very brightly in the world, nachon? Like, we see it all the time, a complete misuse of the terminology. Because they say, listen, we created a new concept. We created a meaning of chesed. We created what it means. HaChesed shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this is the most important thing of this morning. God's chesed goes with another word. HaChesed shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, chesed ve'emet. Chesed and emet have to go together. Chesed and emet have to go together. Chesed shel emet is what? Chesed shel rachmanut klapei mi shemegia lo rachmanut. Chesed of emes is if someone's deserving of having compassion. Yes, they're deserving of having compassion. You must display compassion. B'shel achzariyut, and it's also chesed to be cruel klapei mi shemegia lo achzariyut al rishuto. And it's also a form of chesed to be cruel on someone deserving based on what they did. V'chasher yesh chesed ve'emet biyachad, and when chesed and emet are together, as v'sa'ad bechesed kis'o. That means he's dwelling in the chesed of his. He's sitting in his throne, and it's all there. It's all one. So why do I feel like it's so shaykh for today? Did any of you see the footage of the last hostage release? The last one, which was yesterday, late afternoon, early evening.
No. Yeah, I saw.
So we have to realize what we're dealing with. Okay, this is a mamish, a very dangerous and sick and twisted world. What is this? What happened over there? You had there these Nebuch children. They didn't even know. They were schlepped out of a tunnel about 2 hours before that. They actually thought they were going out to be gunned down. That's what they thought, the Chatufim. And while they're put into the Red Cross, Yemach Shemam also, unbelievable, these people, that there were all these Arab kids throwing rocks and taunting them while they're finally in the Red Cross's van as they're leaving. Now, what does the world say? What does Yemach Shemo, Eric Clapton, say? Tears of a child, the Nebuch, the Ishmaeli child. All that little girl, all they could drink is a little bit of water over here. And we put them into the category, they're children. They're children. These children that were taunting my brothers and sisters after 51 days of captivity, being pulled out of a bor for the first time after 51 days. But chesed ve'emet. It's chesed. We have to understand, it's hard our Western minds we're not programmed like this. Our Western minds have become completely perverted with the concept of Hellenism, a chesed of Hellenism. Don't say it out loud, but just think about it for a second. What would you do to one of these 15-year-old kids that is taunting one of our brothers and sisters in their first moments out of captivity? In the name of chesed. Oh, he doesn't know better. Come, let me learn with you like Shel Mitzvos B'nei Noachim. Klal Gadol B'Torah Amru B'Torah Hu Zeh. This is what we have to remember. Im en emet, en chesed amiti. I'm going to say that line again. Im en emet, if there's no truth, en chesed amiti. Releasing the monsters that we've released the last few days and continue to today is no chesed and it's no emet at all. At all. And that's why we have to be in a different state of deep pain over the fact that another display of a misused terminology of chesed is coming to the world. Again. Chesed, rachmanut, yosher, ahava, chemla. Chesed, rachman is compassion, yosher, honesty, love, compassion. Hakol tzarich liot b'mizgeret shel emet. It all has to be in the framework of emet. Listen, a guy could see Nebuch. Not from Mamash, something. I'm not saying this so that you don't try to figure out what this is. It's something from America that I've been dealing with, of someone that mamash mitzad, what he thinks is a real place of chesed, rachmanut. I wouldn't say yosher, but ahava and chemla is struggling so much to not have an affair with an eshes ish. But do you know what the mind can do to you? When it's something that feels that this falls under all this category, the problem is that he won't for a second say, this is also emes. And therefore, chesed must always go with emes. Always. It doesn't have a hatalia. They both depend on each other. HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'atzmo nikra Rav Chesed ve'emet. When do we say that? We just did. But the Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim, meaning what are the 13 attributes of mercy? What did that do in the world? When Moshe Rabbeinu brings down the revelation of Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim after Chet HaEgel, what did that basically bring to the world, the 13 attributes of mercy? It brought down that Hashem says, I still have an esek with you, I still have something to do with you, I'm not going to wipe you off. That's what it is. That's what the 13 attributes of mercy are. Right? And it's used again in the Meraglim. It's interesting. One word is missing from the 13 attributes of mercy. You know which one? Emet is missing. Because when it comes to talking about Eretz Yisrael, it's a whole drasha we had on this. That's already, you're messing with, it's a whole nother ball game. Now skip the page. Here he goes through a whole sugya in Sanhedrin. We'll break our heads for an hour and a half on Lamdus, but the point over here is he's drilling this point home again of when it comes to giving edus and the level of MS like that, and you could see it inside afterwards. But Rav Kahana is drilling a point over here. He says, Harei hachesed, Harei hanekama barasha, that's chesed shel emet. That's chesed shel emet. That's not achzariyut. That's not midat achzariyut. We already learned over here, achzariyut in its place is chesed. It's chesed shel emet. You know what's so funny in these shurim? Sometimes people that aren't with us over here, but they hear about it, or they get like one line here and there, so they have some ammunition to come out and try to tear me down v'chule. So it's always like, aren't you scared that someone's going to the ramifications of what you're saying? I said, not at all. I'm not scared of the ramifications of an individual, because anyone that wants to hear what they want to hear, they'll do that anywhere in the world. What we're speaking about here is consciousness, is a state of coma and waking up from it as a people to start thinking differently. And you remember, a story I told you once about Rav Steinsaltz. Someone came up to him once on Purim and said to him, Rebbe, and only on Purim a person could actually have the chutzpah to ask Rav Steinsaltz. He says, why did you try to establish this whole Sanhedrin thing? Remember, he tried to establish the Sanhedrin again. And he knew, and everyone knew, this thing wouldn't take off. I one time went to their headquarters. It was like, do you remember where it was? It was on like Rehov, I think, Nov in Nechlot. Somewhere it was like a basement. It wasn't anything. He knew it, and everyone else knew it. But Rav Steinsaltz said the greatest answer in the world. He said, I just wanted people to start thinking about it again. I just wanted that to be an Indian, that people are actually in the context of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, Aliyah, Echule, Yeshut. I just wanted people to start thinking about it again, especially since 3 times a day we say Hashiva Shofteinu K'varishona. When was the last time any of us actually had an imagery of Sanhedrin when we said that bracha in Shmona Esrei? What we're trying to accomplish in these shiurim is very clear, is waking up a tzibur to start thinking again in a healthy way. That's what it is. I don't think anyone here, first of all, I don't think you could darshan anything we say over here and act upon it. Because the context of what we're darshaning here is betor am, it's betor a klal. And that's very important. And he's going to reiterate that again today. Harei chesed, harei nekama barasha, harei chesed shel emet. That's chesed shel emet. Kama pamim kava kadosh baruch hu, it's a zivug hazeh shel chesed ve'emet yachad b'ktuvim. There's so many times throughout the Torah, throughout the Nach, that chesed and emet they come together. Like we see, Matzanu Tehillim, Kol orchos Hashem chesed ve'emes. All the ways of God, chesed ve'emet. Chesed ve'emet man yinsaruhu. V'chen, chesed ve'emet nifgashu. V'chen, rabim ke'ela. There's one that I'm thinking about right now. In Slichos, we say this because I hear my father's nusach. Chesed ve'emes yekadmu fanecha. Chesed ve'emes yekadmu fanecha. The way I come, hopefully, the way I come to Hashem, chesed ve'emes yekadmu fanecha is what greets your face, Hashem. Chesed ve'emes. Ki barachmanut hatipshim yoabed kol mishpat. With the stupidity, with the rachmanus of tipshim, all mishpat, which means all justice, will be lost. Nachon? You want to pass to Yaniv? They're more up here. Ki barachmanut hatipshim yabed kol mishpat. Who says that? Who says barachmanut hatipshim with the rachmanus of the silly ones, all mishpat will be lost? Careful, a very big fanatic, right-wing fanatic. Ele divrei Ramban. The Ramban says this. Again, with the rachmanut of the fools, all form of justice will be lost. Haomdim mul tzva mityavnim. She'imtzu et ra'ayonot hagoyim, ra'ayonot hatarbut hazara. Those that are standing in front of legions of Hellenists that have all adopted the completely twisted, thank you, concept of chesed, the concepts of evil and foreign culture. You know, I was speaking about this yesterday. I sent it out also because it was a big trigger of a lot of beautiful chevra of mine that have they're really going through a hard time now culturally because of Clapton and Dave Matthews and Cat Stevens is no chiddush, but all the other chevra that it's like there's a tarbut that they represented that we all feel so close to, right? It all touches on something in our hearts, right? And then that same makor of what resembled for me the peace and love and the chesed comes and twists the midah of chesed fully. And they're sitting there and asking themselves, oh my God, how am I going to deal with myself? I'm having an existential crisis. These are all wake-up calls to see what are the tarbuts that we're letting inside, whether we realize it or not.
It's the Christianized version
of chesed, of the
not
other.
That they live it, but that it's preached, the turning the other cheek, that they would never do for themselves, but
for others have to. Yeah.
That both Europe has grown up in, and that America is and that affects all of us who've been grew up in that goes.
Yeah, I send that portion of the class that Eric Clapton and Dave Matthews to my uncle Harvey, who promoted all these guys since the 60s, 70s. And I'm asking him, saying, like, where's your movement? Like, he has had issues with, back in the day, with the Pink Floyd guy, what's his name?
No, don't say his name in the show, ever.
And he's been fighting him through a board, and they have organizations against what they're doing, against BDS and all that thing. But it's still not, like, dynamic enough. It's not, I just don't see the equal voice with the people who created this success. So that's my question to him for the class.
What's the answer?
Doesn't respond
Yeah.
yet. He said it's all about timing. He did say one thing.
ודאי שנקמה ואלימות, third line, והריגת בני אדם, כל אלה דברים חמורים הם. Again, this is Rav Kahana saying, of course, that revenge, for the sake of revenge, and alimut, violence, and killing people, are all dvarim chamurim beyoter. These are horrible things. וכאשר הם נעשים סתם, לשם כבוד המלך או האומה, או לשם נקמה אישית, פשע ורישות הם. This is the portion that the guy that wants to have a problem with me won't. Yeah, this is like, no, I didn't hear him say that, right? This Rav Kahana is saying anyone that goes out of revenge just to say, the honor of the king, the whatever it is, or the nation, or even a personal vengeance, this is a crime, and it's rishut, it's evil. אך מי שהולך בפקודת השם ודבק במצוותיו ובמידותיו כראוי, ברחמנות ובחסד ובשלום במקומם ובזמנם, ובאכזריות ובנקמה ובמלחמה במקומם ובזמנם, עובד את השם יתברך. Who is someone that serves Hashem? The one that serves Hashem is someone that their midot are in place. That's a very, very deep concept. Someone who has all these different midot that we learn from the Torah, but they're in the right time and the right place, which is, who resembled that better than anyone is actually Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik is the midah of Yesod. That means the foundation, right? Now, who's his father? Tiferet. Tiferet means is a mixture of Chesed and Gevura. And Avram's Chesed, Yitzchak's Gevura, Yaakov's Tiferet, and Yosef is Yesod. Now, what does that mean? This is the way I learned it from Rav Shlomo based on the Mashilach. What does that mean exactly? It means that Yaakov Avinu knew when to be Chesed and when to be Gvuradik, right? Yosef HaTzadik was operating simultaneously all the time. His Chesed and Gvura were so meshed together, that's the foundation upon all foundations that a Jew needs in order to make it in this world. When I'm not mebulbal at all, and it's all rooted in me, like the Yesod, the foundation, and that's why he's the midah of bris, right, Yosef, because you know everything in its time. And in the manner in which you control emotions and act on emotions is all aligned. It's all b'derech tzaddik. That's the midah of tzaddik in the world. So Rav Kahana ends over here, and he's saying this over here, bimkomam ubizmanam. When would be a time, do you think, that we go out and put out our arms to shalom to anyone that's here, the Yishmaelim? When would be the right time to do such a thing?
Never.
No, that's not that's actually not what he's saying over here.
They've done all their weapons, and they totally gave themselves over to our Menshallah.
Well, first we'd have to rid ourselves of all, in the name of Chesed, to wipe out and kill every single one that's laid their hands on weapons on us. Right? So let's say that's all done. Now, how that could happen, Hashem can do anything. But let's say, I'm just like, for really being open over here, let's say they all lay down their weapons and all the future the older generation is completely wiped out and demolished, right? And we go out to them with shalom, right? Yeah? Would that work? Why wouldn't it work?
The younger generation that was being taught what the older generation was doing.
Right. So we're stuck in a situation that we've actually been there and done that. When did we go out kacha with our hands open b'darkei shalom to them?
Too many times.
47, 48, 56, 67, 73, 80.
Pull-out from
It's en la davar sof. En la davar sof. So therefore, yeah, Ari?
Can't there be a point when they do realize that, well, Israel does mean business, and you know what? Even though they did this to my father and my uncle, like,
how would they know that?
well, I'm saying, like, I don't know.
What would it take for them to?
When was the last time we killed this many? Like,
No.
Don't ever, Ari, I love you. That's not the wording. That is where the other side grabs and says, you understand what I'm pointing out? It's not about numbers.
So they turn it in a bad way, but at the same time, which is funny because they're probably lying about the numbers, but at the same time, there are little kids going, wow, Israel does mean business. Look how many. Like, let's say the number's really half. They've doubled it, let's say.
Right.
But
Right.
that, to some kids, that's going to go, wow, Israel scares me now. They mean business. They will come in here and they will.
Do you know when? No. The Rebbe actually spoke about this. The Lubavitcher Rebbe did say there is this concept, but it's not anything we're willing to go forth right now. When would you bring down the consciousness of, whoa, they mean business? There's only one thing. That for sure. Even before that.
It was said yesterday by someone who I mentioned to you the other day after the Shia. He said, they know we've got the atom bomb. They would use it and we don't. So therefore, the Gevurah that we have is that we've got HaKadosh Baruch Hu on our side, the real HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not the phantom one.
But let's go tachlis. Let's give an answer. You raised something very good. David, did you see the video that they've been putting out from the Rebbe during the Milchemet Yom Kippurim and Milchemet Shlomo Galil? He said, you go and conquer everything again. It's land. If we went right now and really reconquered, now a friend of mine from within Gaza told me, there's a lot of new streets being paved these days. It's very interesting what's looking down there. So it gets me a little bit excited. But if we went and conquered a chunk right now of southern Lebanon, we keep on going like that. And Andy, do you know that a friend sent me a video last night? He lives on the border of the Jordan Valley, right? Do you know what they're going to sleep to every night over there? The Jordanian army is practicing over there every single day and night, and it's like you're hearing crazy weaponry every single night. If there was the notion of going and conquering, literally, first of all, it's all according to the Torah, that's Eretz Yisrael anyway, right? If you went and conquered like that, and the Rebbe said, go till Beirut. That's the only thing that could maybe bring them what we wish they had, which was what? Fear from us. That's the whole thing. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Now I'm again stopping this conversation and going back inside. Hine, HaTorah HaKdosha, we're on the 4th paragraph. HaTorah HaKdosha, Torat Chaim v'Torat. I just have to say one more thing. Anything short of that continues to be Galus mentality, and the whole drive of a Zionist state with just being in a Galus mentality. Clear, right? It's all thing. Anything that's less of what we just said right now is still living in and just we have to call out what it is. It's not. It's a Galut Zionist mentality. Anything short of it. Only because I don't want to get killed. I want my kids to actually stay alive. That it's a small thing. I know I'm crazy, right? I know. Hina Torah Kedosha, Torat Chaim v'Torat Chesed. Now here, this is the dugma he brings, and I'm sure some of you remember this. Hina Torah Kedosha, Torat Chaim v'Torat Chesed masra lanu mitzvah shel ir hanidachat. Okay, there's a mitzvah in the Torah called ir nidachat. Do you remember what the ir nidachat is in Sefer Dvarim? Yeah. What's an ir nidachat? What are the laws regarding a town of ir? There's a lot. Huh? Yeah, there are a lot of different. Now the Gemara says there are a lot of different complications, which makes it mean that perhaps it never even existed, just like the din of ben sorer umoreh. But so I think it's Rabbi Yonatan. I forget who it was. I looked in the Gemara. He says, first of all, I did see something like this. It actually did existed. And then another Tana says, the inyan that we do with ir nidachat, even if you say it never happened, is that you have to learn about it in order to understand the ramifications. You'll get schar for learning about it and understand the ramifications of it in different contexts of the future. So we have a concept called ir nidachat. Basically it's a town. There was a town. It's fully of the avodah zarah. There was two edim there was two hatraot, two azarot that people came and warned them, but they continued with it. It can't be an Ir Miklat, it can't be Yerushalayim. There's all these different criteria, but it exists as an entity. Kon nitztavenu, and listen what we were commanded from Avinu Avarachaman, the merciful God. She'im nishma al ir shehutcha al yidei bnei Belial, ve'alchu yoshvei ha'ir ve'avdu avodah zara, aleinu lalechet le'ashmid et ha'ir ve'et kol yoshvei berechusha, ad shetishaer tel olam, until it remains. We know what tel olam means? Like a barren mountain. Tel Aviv is mountain, right? Well, like until it's completely desolate. This is Avinu Avarachman says this, right? Kach ne'emar, haket yoshvei ha'ir ha'ir lefi charev, v'sarafta ba'esh et ha'ir v'et kol shlala kalil. That's the point. That's the word here. Kalil la'Hashem Elokecha. Just like they burnt our children kalil. Sorry, Chara, I'm going to keep on saying this because our minds are already racing too fast, getting so happy seeing hostages coming home. There are still about 30 bodies that are unidentified. Ve'et kol shlala kalil la'Hashem Elokecha. Ve'natan lecha rachamim v'richemcha v'hirbecha. Ki tishma b'kol Hashem Elokecha lishmor et kol mitzvotav la'asot hayashar b'nei Hashem Elokecha. You want a yashvus? You want to be yashar? Here's a mitzvah. Vala pasuk kalil la'Hashem. Kalil means completely, right? On the words kalil la'Hashem Elokecha, Omrim Chazal, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Im atem osim din be'ir hanidachat, ma'aleh ani alechem ki'ilu atem ma'alim ola kalil lefanai. If you actually go ahead and do this, it's as if you brought for me a complete korban before me. Hashem Yitbarach says. But Rav Kahana says, but the kid that grew up on Mr. Rogers can't relate. He can't relate to this stuff. The kid that grew up in Israel in Rehov Sumsum, Sesame Street, and all this stuff that's been plugged into our minds subconsciously, how does he relate to this? Hari lefi machshavotenu hadalot v'atzarot nishma davar ze k'si ha'achzariyut chas v'sholem. This seems like the heightened state of cruelty. Ach kel deot Hashem velo nitkelu alilot. Torat Hashem tmima v'kula emet v'yosher chesed v'rachmim. But wait a second. Everything the Torah says is chesed and rachamim. Everything. Ve'im ken kol kach lama. So what is this all for? Hatshuva hatzlula nimtzet b'siva mishnah sham. Look at the end of the Mishnah there. B'zeh Lishono, the end of the Masechet. Shekol zman she'areshaim ba'olam charon af ba'olam. As long as you have Rishaim, and Rishaim are not just members that are wearing green bandanas. It's much more than that. Avdu reshaim min ha'olam, nistalek charon af min ha'olam. Do you care about Hashem's anger? Hashem's wrath? As long as these Rishaim are in the world, Hashem's wrath is in the world. And when these Rishaim are removed from the world, Hashem's wrath is removed from the world. You ever see someone get your father really angry, and it wasn't you? No, and it wasn't you. That's the key, right? I had this experience one time. I was playing a wedding with my father in, I think it was San Diego or somewhere, because it was on the beach, somewhere on the coast in California. And the chevra that were working in the kitchen, you know, I remember these days where the biggest fight during weddings was when you're playing the first set and the major D comes out and he goes like this to you. And it doesn't matter if the chassan and kala took their longer time or not. When the first mana has to come out, it has to come out. No, but they just came out 5 minutes ago. You're going to stop all this. Those were always the biggest milchamas we used to have all the time. I used to have mamish. I used to bring people with me to the wedding to catch the guy that was about to come up to me and like pull the mic out of my hand. Because these guys, for them, if that manari shana does not come out on that time, what does it mean, basically? He's going to work later or whatever it is, or the food's going to get cold, whatever it is. This happened in Los Angeles. So here in Eretz Yisrael, unfortunately, it wasn't only Yidden. Sometimes Mustafa would come up and go like this to me while we're Mesameach Chassan and Kala in Yerushalayim. And then all you saw here was Pinchas. I wouldn't even, whatever. But this happened in Los Angeles when and they came up to my father and did this. And again, the same thing was happening. And it was a Mexican woman, okay, that came and did this and like told my father and started threatening my father. Whatever. Then we went. So my father ignored her, continued playing for probably another 20 minutes, and then we went back to get food from the kitchen for the musicians, and I went to go see if I can get something for my father to eat. Now, she didn't know that my father's Argentinian, and she starts cursing my father in Spanish. And my father saw me, right, and whatever. I be'emet acted in a way that I didn't do anything. My father saw I was about to do something, because you're cursing my father? You're cursing my father. At that moment, you're toast. Nothing in the world exists. You're cursing she didn't know my father's Argentinian. She's cursing my father in Spanish. And my father saw it, but he saw me. It was the only time in my life that I don't think I ever was in a physical altercation in my life. It was the only time in my life that I actually saw the whole thing going down, right, at that moment. Because my father's wrath was first of all, my father's busha. But my father, I don't even know if it was my father's wrath. My father's you say you know my father, isn't it? But to me, my father's wrath was there. See, when a Yid, we have to understand something. We have to understand something and be clear right now. Hashem's wrath is in the world right now for the Chilul Hashem that is taking place as we speak. And even though there's moments of hugs at 7:30 p.m., and now they're pushing it off more, day by day, which is going to make us feel like, oh, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe this is better, instead of running to bomb shelters and hearing Chalila, or Shiva calls in funerals. The Chilul, the Charon Af, as these Rishayim continue to exist in the world, is what it's about. Once the Rishayim are removed from the world, Hashem's Charon Af is removed from the world. The question is, how much are you in pain over God's wrath? How much does that really bother you? And that's why he keeps on bringing us back to this point of where everything else stems from. It cannot be. See, you know why I didn't go after this woman with the plate that was in my hand? You know why? Because I saw that my father really, he basically, at the end, he didn't care. Because my father's, he's a tzaddik. Because I saw that my Abba his charon af wasn't really there, right? So I had to let go, and I did. But can any of us say that the moments we're feeling now of love amongst us and a breather is removed Hashem's wrath from the world? Not at all. No one can say that if you actually stop and think about it. Not at all.
If anything, the opposite.
100%. Val Mishnah zo omeret Hagmara. It's 2 more minutes. Tanu Rabbanan Rasha Bala Olam Charon Bala Olam. When a Rasha comes to the world, this wrath, this anger comes to the world. Shne'emar bevo rasha bo gam bo zva'im kalon cherpa. Rasha avad min ha'olam, tova ba la'olam. Shne'emar uba'avod reshaim rina. This is also, like, I can't stand when people say, well, you shouldn't rejoice over the fact that our enemies are killed. I'm not rejoicing over the enemy being killed. I'm rejoicing over the fact that Abba is less angry. Uva'avod reshaim rina. Barur. Kmo she'amarnu la'el. שדבר זה חייב להיות אך ורק לשם מצוות השם וללא שום הנאה אישית או נגיעה פרטית. I know this seems impossible. This is the hardest point of this whole learning, that it cannot be personal, meaning that it can't come from the place that usually anger, touches upon. Like, we have to become really refined Yidden. Like, we have to be real ma'aminim that we get fired up about these Torahs just like we get fired up about Dveikus Torahs. Pnimius and this has to go together for it to be real. Like, being in awe of being in the presence of Hashem has to touch me just as deep as the ratzon that I want to have about wiping out Amalek. If it's not, it won't work. Kach kotev Rashi, LaHashem Elokecha, lishmo ubishvilo. וכן כתב אבן עזרא, כליל, כלל להשם אלוקיך, בעבור כבוד השם. What is כליל? Just for the sake of Hashem אלוקיך, בעבור כבוד השם תשרפנה באש. Just for the kavod of Hashem, you take the עיר נידחת, and you burn it into a furnace, you make it into a furnace. דעסקנים שם כתב, כדי שיוודע לכל, שלשם הקדוש ברוך הוא חירבתם העיר, ולא ליהנות מממונם. Why do you burn everything? Why do you burn everything? To make sure you're making it clear, we didn't burn this to take any loot, to take anything from here. We did this because the Torah says us to do this. Did you see how the monsters, the footage came out yesterday, of the ones that came to a gas station while they're trying to kill Yidden? They're also grabbing beers and anything they could while they have a huge Kalashnikov and they're Charon. בעניין זה כתב האור החיים הקדוש שם. What does the אור החיים say over there in עיר נידחת? כי בשלמה, אם הייתה הרציחה של אנשי עיר נידחת לנקמה אנושית, if burning the עיר נידחת had to do with personal revenge, יש מקום להנמשך מהדבר, מה שאין כן עתה, שאין המעשה אלא מטעם קבלת מצוות המלך, והוא באומרו כי תשמע בקול השם אלוקיך, לשמור את כל מצוותיו. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work if it was about us. Hashem,
יש מקום לנמשך מהדבר.
כי בשלמת הרציחה של עיר נידחת לנקמה אישית, יש מקום להנמשך מהדבר. Then you would have a problem drawing out from here conclusions that have to do just for yourself. But because the whole parsha there opens up with ki tishma b'kol Hashem elokecha, and from there I'm going and acting on what I'm doing. It's like, did we make aliyah because of like Jewish pride? Maybe. But it's time we made aliyah now because Hashem said to come home. It's the same thing. Do we have an Israeli army because we need to be protected here? Or do we have an Israeli army because Hashem said you have to, I'm bringing you back home, v'nishmartem me'od lenafshotechem. כי כשעושים משפט בעיר הנידחת, כאילו קיימו כל מצוות השם. The Or HaChaim says, because when you do mishpat like Ir Nidachat, of burning up the whole city because that's what's the mitzvah in that moment, it's as if you kept all the Torah and mitzvahs because that's what Hashem wanted from you at that moment. דבר עצום לימדונו פה קדוש. הרי אין מצווה בתורה יותר קשה על היהודי מאשר להשמיד עיר שלמה של יהודים. By the way, עיר נידחת is not Yishmael. Who's עיר נידחת? Who did Moshe Rabbeinu kill right after Chet HaEgel? Killed Yidden? He killed people that were Jews? Moshe Rabbeinu? I gotta change my nephew's name now. Again, the places in Torah we're comfortable just skipping over. He says it's the hardest, there's no harder mitzvah in the Torah than to say you have to demolish a whole city of Yidden. וכל טבעו מורד נגד צו זה. My nature rebels against such a commandment. ואם בכל זאת הוא מתגבר על אנוכיותו. But if you overcome your own I, right, the anochi of it, וכופה את יצרו להשם במצווה זו, and you coerce your yetzer to Hashem over this mitzvah, kama gadol scharo. You have people, they have a harder time doing shiluach haken than justifying protecting themselves from terrorists. You hear, it's crazy. Again, because it's all anochi. Oh, this feels so wrong to me. This feels so wrong. Baruch Hashem, the Torah removed that from you. You don't act in the world because it feels wrong to you. You act in the world because Hashem said, this is how you keep the world intact. This is how you keep my name intact, and this is the real chesed ve'emet, and the real shalom in the world. Kama himlich alav et melech malchei hamlachim. When you go beyond what makes you feel good and right, and you look at what the Torah says, you're mamlich Hashem. If you just do what you feel what feels good to you and proper, you're mamlich. Do you know who you're mamlich? Yourself. You're mamlich yourself. The Torah is an opportunity every day to mamlich Hashem. And to mamlich Hashem quite often will demand of us to go beyond our nature and to actually lichpot, to coerce our nature. Kama kibel alav et ol malchuto, achen harei ze ki'ilu kiyem et kol mitzvahs Hashem. The Rav Chaim is saying, a person that could actually go about an ir nidachat mitzvah, it's as if he really was mekayim the whole Torah. Why?
It's so hard for him.
Because it's exactly the hardest thing for him. So it's exactly against his whole nature. Listen, I'll take it on a very much smaller level. When I can really love the person that's hardest for me to love, I'm probably also mekayim the whole Torah in the world. Because my mind says to me, and that's why Rabbi Akiva says, Ze klal gadol b'Torah, b'avtecha kamocha. Because my mind says to me, this Menuvel and his opinions and what he did to me, there's all the reasons based on what I feel to justify not loving that person. But then I'm mamlich myself. But mamlich Hashem says, but wait a second, what did the Torah say about what's real chesed and emes in the world? Once I go like that, it's as if I kept the whole Torah kula. And we'll end with this last, the Sifri. HaSifri omer al zeh, ki tishma bekol Hashem Elokecha. That you listen in the voice of Hashem Elokecha regarding ir nidachat. Mikan amru. Hitchil adam lishmoa kim'a, sofo mashmi'im lo harbe. Start listening a little bit. Just a little bit. Start with one thing. At the end, mashmi'im lo. You know what that means? You start by working hard and paying attention a little bit. It'll result in the mashmi'im lo harbe. It'll be heard to you, it'll be brought to you so much more than that. La'asot hayashar b'nei Hashem Elokecha. Zeh she'amar Rabbi Yishmael hayashar b'nei Hashamayim. What's yashar b'nei Hashem Elokecha? That which is yashar in the eyes of Shamayim. Klomar v'lo hayashar b'einecha. Listen, let's call it face to face right now. Hayashar b'einai right now, and for many of us, after watching footage, really is personal nekama. It is. That's the most yashar thing in our eyes. I don't know how. There's certain pieces of footage. If you see them and you don't have a desire, linkom, at that moment, something's missing. In your teva. There's one footage I actually saw of a girl right after they did what they did with her. I could not believe that in the world that I'm living in and the family that I belong to, this happened. So, and the level of yashar be'enai, what's yashar be'enai? The most yashar be'enai.
You want to go find these people and slaughter them.
And if I can't find them, I find their meaning. It doesn't matter, right? But that's yashar be'enai. And the Torah is always saying, when it comes to emotions, ma sheyashar be'einecha, ze tzrichim lihizaher mize. It's what's yashar be'einei Hashem. So then the shaila is, okay, what's yashar be'einei Hashem? What's yashar be'einei Hashem is removing Rishaim from this world, collectively, as a people.
So if your Nekama, your personal Nekama matches with Hashem's Ratzon, how does it work? The guy has a desire to revenge the enemy, and it's the Ratzon of Hashem, then it's
I
good.
still have to, it's good, but
Hey, no, it's not my Nekama. It's only Hashem.
I have to mivare. I still have. It could be bemet, like it could be that eventually, the outcome of what ends up happening. Nachon, zagam yashar beinai. But what's yashar beinai is not the gorem machriya. It can't be. It can't be. What's that?
That was the shtickle problem of Levi
Exactly. Meaning the
was
act
right.
was
He
right.
himself.
Exactly. But because that's exactly the diuk with Shimon and Levi. Nachon. And even though at the end we see all the greatest things come out of Shimon and Levi, because Be'emet, the Maaseh was right, Yaakov still had to curse the anger when he did on his deathbed because of that nikudav of being able to mamlich Hashem at a moment when you think, what I want is exactly what Hashem wants. When it comes to emotions, you could justify yourself always. That's why it has to be moyach shalit al halev. Because when you want to justify what you're feeling, we each suddenly become professors. We're like the smartest geniuses in the world. It all adds up. That's the ego. That's and you'd say, but it's dvarim shebekdusha. It's my brother's blood. No, it's true. But the Torah says how to do it. And like we saw with the Achronim from last year, there is a concept called milchemet nekama, but it has to be in that context. Let's finish this. V'amar bar laturim shelo tidag lomar hichrafti ir veyoshvea lachem mibesarcha lomar shelo tidag v'yirachamecha v'yirbecha. So you shouldn't be worried to say, "Oh, I completely demolished the whole city and its dwellings." Therefore, from you shouldn't be worried to say, in order to, meaning the Torah is saying, don't be scared of ending up doing what Hashem told you if you start feeling bad about it, because it ends up saying v'yirchemcha v'yirbecha. Meaning, this is also an Indian that we have to make sure. When we do go out and wipe out evil from the world, and then that Hellenism culture comes and shows you pictures of all the children that chas v'shalom were killed because they were mamish knapsacks on terrorist bags. The Torah says, no. Don't get confused. V'haseh satan milfaneinu u'me'achareinu. Remove the satan before I have to go and wipe out evil, and remove the satan also after I go out and wipe evil.
Back to the Maharal in the word last week.
It does. It's very, very shaykh to the Gur Aryeh. V'shuv navi midivrei da'at zkenim bischar shelo richamta al machisav. With reward that you didn't have rachmanis on those that bring God pain and anger, hu yirachem alecha. You really want rachmanis in the world? Don't have rachmanis on people that deserve nothing but death. Lo litbalbel chevra. We're still in a war with mamash, the dark side. And it's coming on, now it's tugging on the emotions in a twisted, sick way. Stay focused. Keep on learning. Don't just learn what you want to hear. I know some of these pieces are hard for you to hear whenever he says about the things about holding back and restraint, but that's also Torah. We have to look at it in a clear picture, a big picture. So we have one more shir on this on Wednesday, and then next Monday we start learning all of this in Pnimius. Okay?